Hello, everybody. Today I wanted to talk about something that's really interesting, and I've been asked about it a lot on Twitter regarding DCUO. Right now, they've done a post. It was a couple days ago, and they did a live stream as well. And you can watch that live stream by clicking the link in the description if you guys wanted to hear what Meps and Aver have to say about this new development that is the stats revamp. When I first got the article thrown at me, I was a little bit wary because I quickly scanned over the first part where it says revamping stats, removing advanced mechanics and weapon mastery in bonuses, enhancing supercharges, modifying power and power regeneration, removing power points, ending mid-range, and preparing for the future. That's a lot to take in, honestly. But after watching the live stream, which if you guys have not already, you should go watch the live stream so that Meps and Aver can kind of talk you guys through what the upcoming changes are that they're hoping to get out in the game. Now, for a while now, they've been working on mid-range. And in all honesty, this whole close range, long range, mid-range thing has been it seems like it's just this mismatched, mangled thing. They're trying to go through each power and fix them and revamp each power and try to make them all better. This update that they're trying to make, which they don't have a set time on, but they want to put it out before the next episode, which is another Amazon Fury episode. The last part of the Amazon Fury episode, I believe. And that's not due till the beginning of next year sometime. So they still have quite a lot of time to work on this before we might even see it. They were mentioning things about it maybe being the next update or the one after. So if we see it that soon, that would be really fantastic, since we're supposed to get the Halloween update pretty soon for October. So that would be pretty fantastic if we can see that happen before the end of the year. But this clearly is going to be like a huge undertaking for them. And basically, I'm going to walk you guys through everything on here as I heard it. So this is from my eyes, from their mouths to your ears. So there's going to be a little leeway in it. But I guess it's more just my opinion on the things that I heard rather than actually what they're going to be. I also did manage to grab some screenshots. I hope the DC devs are not upset that I grabbed those, but I wanted to be able to show people the things that you guys are looking to do, not maybe what it would be in the final product. These screenshots are just from their internal test servers, so they are not the final product. They are just for testing and trying to figure out exactly what it's going to be. So in the end, it might be different, and it wouldn't surprise me. Again, this is a huge undertaking that they're choosing to do. Personally, I think this is, after hearing what they had to say, this is a fantastic way to go with the combat. Combat up till now has been kind of a catch-up game. We had it before, and then we started getting new powers, and the new powers offset the old powers and made a lot of the old powers not as reliable or not as good as the new powers that they added. So they tried to buff and debuff, and then they tried to add stuff that would help out new players in the form of weapon mastery combos and advanced mechanics. And from what they said, they found out that when it came to advanced mechanics did one really big thing. it limited your loadout, which is true. It gave you a really decent loadout, and you would do, if you could do it right, you would do exponential amounts of damage compared to other people. Especially people who were not using it and people who were doing like weapon mastery and stuff like that. You were doing significantly more damage if you were able to pull off those advanced mechanics. But at the same time, you were removing any of your ability to play around with your powers because, as I've shown in a lot of the current Let's Plays, using the advanced mechanics that I've learned, it limits your loadout significantly. And to get the highest amount of damage out of that, if you're being a DPS, which is what that relates to, although there are the healer or the tank advanced mechanics. Where was I? Brain died. I cut myself off. If you're using those, you weren't able to mess around with powers. You had to use a very specific loadout for it to work, to get the most damage out of it. So what they're trying to do now is actually kind of bring it back to basics, which I personally find a great idea. Because I remember playing the game way back in the day before they started adding advanced mechanics, before they started adding new powers, all this stuff. There were powers that were really good, powers that were very situational. You could mess around with your loadout. You could play around with the powers and see what worked for you best. And one thing that I always try to push forward, which I haven't been able to do recently with the advanced mechanics, but back in the day, I used to always say, and I still believe it, that you should play your character the way you want to play it. And this definitely is pushing it in that direction. And I applaud them for trying to push it back to that direction of play your character the way that you want to play your character. What works best for you. Find a loadout that's good for you. And so this update is going to change a lot of things. It's pretty much going to bring everything back to basics again, and everybody's going to have to relearn things. Now, granted, I understand where they're going with it, and they want to create this idea of choose your own loadout. I hope they go full force with that, because what it seems to be happening is that they'll list a number of powers in it. And it's like this one plus this one does so much extra damage plus this one does so much extra damage. So people end up finding a like supreme loadout. What would be beneficial, and I hope they do, is that they have a lot of powers that are very similar. And, depending on how the situation is or how you use your loadout, you might want to play around with those powers. And, of course, with anything, there's going to be the hardcore players that find the most damage or the best healer or the best troller or the best tank loadout. It's just going to happen because they're going to take a look at it, shrink it down, find the best things that are possible, the best rotation, and use that. I'm also really excited because I really like using the advanced mechanics. It's very simple. But I do miss going into combat and using my weapons and bashing guys and getting my power back that way. And, using my powers more sparingly and more strategical rather than just mashing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and then starting over again. So it'll be nice to get back to that and make the combat more like it used to be. Even though I like the advanced mechanics because it's just simple and sometimes I'm dead tired and I'm like, whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But it will be really nice to actually have to go in and use your powers more strategically than just bashing it to get the damage out. And this is also going to bring back a lot of the troller aspect. But what they said is that they want to improve all the powers and kind of level all the powers out. And also the roles. So controller will be sometimes doing almost as much damage as a DPS and giving them, they're going to tell us later on, but they have some ideas of how you're going to get like power regeneration and things like that back, rather than just the controller being a mobile battery. They can actually get in and do some more stuff. And as somebody who played a controller from the start and really enjoys that role, I'm really glad that they are trying to put more emphasis on it actually being a controller instead of being a battery. So that there's a lot of things to really like about this. I really hope it's going to be good. And I think it's going to open up powers more, because I know there's a lot of powers that are kind of broken because of their advanced mechanic, or they don't have one. Their damage sucks. So this is going to kind of like, hopefully, because this is going to apply to all the powers, not one individually at a time. It's going to be a clean slate for all the powers. So hopefully it brings everything back to an even level, so every power is viable after that. But again, we'll see. So I don't really know exactly what I should go through. Stat revamp overview. They're removing the combat rating differential. They've been talking about this for a long time. Combat rating became like a measure of your power rather than your stats actually mattering. Like back in the day when somebody would be calling out on LFG chat asking for like, a DPS was 6,000 might or whatever. Back then it was a lot lower, but whatever. But they'd be calling out for very specific stats for stuff, or a tank with so much dominance and or might rather. I think might, if I'm thinking right. It's been a while since I messed around with a tank, but yeah, I mean, back in the day they used to do that. Now everybody calls for a certain combat rating, and that was kind of a measure of power. But now they're going to kind of remove that. The combat rating is still going to exist, but it's more of just an overview. It's like you're kind of around this level. But enemies aren't going to be based off that anymore. It's going to be based off your stats. So if you can't beat something because your stats are too low, then you got to go grind and get some more, better gear, so your stats will be better. Or you need to go create some mods, and they're going to buff mods to be more effective, which is going to be pretty cool. Hopefully that works out really good, because I am a person who really likes to stack those mods on my gear, as you should, of course. So they're removing the combat rating. It's not going to be a measure of your power anymore. It's just going to be a general, this is what level you are. What is that? We are smoothing out how you gain stats over the course of your character's life. Let's see. In a word, sorry, I still have my glasses on and I can't see that far. In a word, the smoothing means consistency from level 1 on. Meaning your efforts to progress. So it's just kind of like smoothing it out, so you don't have like these big jumps in your leveling. You level more at a constant pace rather than big jumps or short leaps. Redistributing where stats come from, so they're going to be changing how your stats work, and I'll talk a bit about that. And skill points. They're working on that too, which I will also talk about. Removing advanced mechanic and weapon mastery bonuses. Weapon mastery and the advanced mechanics are still going to exist in some form. Again, allowing you to do combos of powers to deal more damage. but it's not going to have the same effect as before. So your advanced mechanic, if you were to try to spam that, it's no longer going to give you that same explosion of power. And your weapon mastery is no longer going to give you those bonuses of damage or whatever anymore. So that's kind of where that's coming from, and I do not mind that at all. I just want to kind of see how this works out and how things end up evolving from this. Enhancing supercharges, they talked briefly about that they wanted to make supercharges more viable in your loadout. So creating a set that gets you more power back, or more supercharged power, so you can use your supercharges more often, rather than them just being a kind of like, here's a big burst of damage. You can kind of use it a lot more often and more tactically in a battle. So that's going to be interesting to see what that happens. I'd really be interested to see if they can make it so you can have a lot of supercharges in your loadout, like more than just one, and have it still be a viable loadout. Again, they're kind of building it up so that you can do a lot more variety with your loadout, which I very much approve of, to have people, try different loadouts. Again, I'll be showing, once this update comes out, I should say, I will personally be going through all the powers that I've already done on the channel, and coming up with a loadout, or a loadout that works for me, and sharing it with you guys, and then you can decide if you want to use it. It would be just kind of whatever, but we will have to see when it comes out to see exactly what's going on, or if it's still the same thing where these combinations of powers work better than other combinations of powers. So we'll see what happens with that. The big interesting thing is that, actually through all this, I'm going to quickly bring up a couple of those screenshots. So this here is your new traits menu. And it looks a lot different because there are no longer two trees, and we'll be explaining that in just a second here. And there's also a new menu that says stat points. Now, before, you'd get stats through your skill points. You would, through your weapons and everything, you would get stats from using skill points on those. And that's how you would get your stats. Now, it's all been moved over into one menu. And you just use your skill points to increase the percentage of those particular stats that you want. The first starting off as like your crits and stuff, then your magnitudes and things like that, and then you're just straight stats like might, vitalization, things like that. So that's how it's going to work now, which is really, really cool because it kind of condenses all that stuff into one. And sometimes you see me playing and I'd be digging through a power and I'm like, well, this one gives me more vitalization, or this one gives me more might, or this one gives me more precision, so I'll use this one. Now it's all in one menu. You don't have to focus on getting every single weapon. You can if you want, but now it's a little bit more focused and you can focus your efforts into one thing rather than just a lot of things. So I really appreciate them doing that, removing it from the weapons and just kind of giving it its own menu. And I hope that's how it stays. It looks like that's the way they want to do it. So hopefully that is how it is. And they said that the numbers, if you're looking at it and you're like, well, that seems kind of low, the numbers are going to be much higher because there's some sort of bug in the internal server. And it's also going to be, you get more skill points as more DLCs come out. So the caps on these are going to raise as time goes on. So there are going to be like soft caps, but as more DLC comes out, you're going to be able to add more points into those to buff them even further. So that's awesome. So those of you guys that are really focusing on all those skill points, you do not have to worry. You're going to be able to do a lot with it. So that looks pretty awesome. I'm excited for that. And the weird thing that they're changing, which works with the idea of try whatever you want to do with your loadout. Make something interesting. Do something cool with your loadout that works for you, that is reliable for you, that works with your play style. They are removing PowerPoints. And what happens is, as you level, each level gives you one of the powers. I'm not honestly too worried about getting them one at a time rather than choosing, because honestly, when you're doing the 1 to 30, unless you're very brand new, and hopefully they lay it out so you get some decent powers from the get-go that are reliable, you can play around with them. I imagine after level 6, you can start swapping things around, seeing what works for you. But you're just going to get one power every level up to 30, and then boom, that's it. You got it. That's all your powers. Also, they mentioned that having it this way now allows them to have a little bit more freedom. There's no longer trees, so you're not limited to a set menu. So there might be possibilities of them maybe in the future adding more powers to the current powers, more abilities for them. So that would be really, really cool. It was just kind of an off thing that they threw out. I don't know if we'll ever see that, but that'd be pretty interesting to see them throw some different powers in there, or maybe some alternatives to current ones inside there, that maybe, at level 16, you get 2 powers, and one you can choose, you can choose from either one of those if you want. That would be pretty interesting. Kind of like this, the whole PowerPoints thing, again, was to kind of make you have to choose powers. You had to choose a loadout. These are the powers that I have available to me. This allows you to kind of do whatever you want with your loadout. And I'm super excited for that. I think that's a great idea. So yeah, those are the little screen caps that I grabbed of their internal test server of this update. Those aren't the final product, so you can't judge a lot by that. But if that's how it's going to look, I'm very excited for it. I think it's going to be super interesting when it comes out. So yeah, they're removing the PowerPoints. That's no longer going to be a thing. Now you might be interested in, let me bring this one up again. The iconic powers. They have their own menu still. You might be saying, well, if there's no PowerPoints, how do you get iconic powers? You get them through stat points. You can get iconic powers that way. People were asking if you could make a viable iconic powers loadout. They said no, it really wouldn't work. And honestly, it never really did. As the iconic powers are kind of there in case it helps you with a certain thing. Like the Green Lantern shield is great if you're a tank, like an ice tank. The Word of Power is great if you're a controller. There's just certain things that might help you as you go that are iconic, or maybe you just really, 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 really wanted this power on your character. Boom, you can have it. It's an iconic style power. But generally, they're more of just kind of an extra thing to add to your already loadout, if it helps. The thing I'm excited about, because it just seems to have been a nightmare, I think I already said it, but they're ending mid-range. They're not going to be doing mid-range anymore, which is great, because it seems like that's just been bogging down everything, them trying to get this mid-range to have these weird, set distances for powers and damage, and yeah, that seems like a lot of work. It seems like so much work for them to put in all this weird stuff that I don't know if it was ever really necessary. But what they're planning to do with your powers now is that some powers, and you should already kind of know this if you play your character enough, some powers are more effective at close range. You know, at certain ranges, they stop being effective. You don't actually hit the target very well. And some powers are very good at long range. They hit a lot of area at a long range. So now powers are going to be listed as melee or range, which is fantastic. Super simple. You want a melee character? Boom, pick some melee powers. You want to be a ranged character? Pick some range powers. Or make a mix of it. You might want to be a little bit versatile, jump around. You know, that's great. Great gameplay, you know, being dodging around. If you get close, you need some close range powers. If you're far away, you need some long range powers. Fantastic. Very simple. Don't know why they didn't do it before. But I think they wanted every power to have its own melee and range damage. And I just don't think that's viable. And clearly they didn't either. They just wiped that off the board and they just went ahead. And they're like, nope, we're not doing that anymore. It's way too complicated. It's way too difficult. It's not going to work. So, that's great. They're getting rid of mid-range. I didn't like it. It was annoying. And I'm glad it's gone. And then they're just kind of preparing for the future. They haven't told us what the future is yet. They kind of like tossed some sort of half ideas out. But we don't really have much of an idea of what the future is. But I'm excited. But yeah, a lot of people were asking my opinion on this. I think this is great. This is what it should have been in the beginning. And honestly, everything that they've been adding has been to try to fix the problems before. You know, we had all these powers, they were trying to update them. So for some powers to be more competitive, they put in weapon mastery. And that helped out for a while, but then it made the ones that were already powerful still kind of more powerful. So they would nerf those ones. And then they're like, well, shoot, we need something interesting for the powers, because they started putting out powers with more interesting combinations, like Celestial and stuff. So they put out advanced mechanics. And then that just limited everything, and then they were trying to create this mid-range thing, and then it's just been problems. So I'm really glad that they're just cleaning the slate off, going back, readjusting all the damage, bringing the stats back to what they were so that that matters and it's not just your level. I mean, the thing about DC Universe Online compared to other MMOs, as far as I know and I'm concerned about, DC Universe Online lets you kind of have whatever gear you have. A lot of MMOs do go off like level. When you're this level because you've done these very set missions for your character, that's what level you are, and you compete with people that are at that same level. But DC Universe Online is a little bit different. You can wear a different kind of armor, and sometimes there's some legendary armor. It's a variety of lots of different things. And yes, that complicates things. But it also allows people to, maybe show off their prowess or, be a little bit more intricate with their character. So yeah, personally, I think this is fantastic. I know probably there's going to be some people that have an issue with it. Maybe a lot of people, I imagine that perhaps the hardcore players, I don't know what it is, like people that, when I talk about hardcore players, I mean the people that always are upset because, I don't know, their favorite thing changed, or that it's not hard enough. The game's not hard enough for them, or that, I don't know. They just get upset, and they'll probably get upset anyway. But, I don't know. I honestly think this is great. And for somebody coming into the game new, I think this gives them a little bit more ground. Rather than just being like, I don't know what I'm doing, and then them going into like an alert or something and just using powers that they're like, well, these seem really good. And then everybody hating them for not using the advanced mechanic, or not using your weapon mastery, or not using your combos. This kind of allows everyone to have their own play style and gives a little bit more variation to the game rather than just everyone using the same loadout and trying to hit those same numbers as the guy above them. So I personally think this is great. And, you know, I've always been kind of an inclusive person when it comes to this game. I think everyone should have their own play style because you're all different superheroes. Every superhero can't be the same. Every superhero isn't the same. Arm Fall Off Boy is not as powerful as Green Lantern. I mean, let's be honest. But I mean, they're both superheroes, and they both exist, or at least existed. So yeah, I mean, I think this is personally great. And if it gets us the ability to have, you know, more powers made, because everything's been evened out and they have a level playing field that they can create a power off of, and they don't have to make it super powerful or weird or janky or some weird combos or anything like that. Great. It's great. I want to see more of that. Just solid powers you can just hop into, play. Maybe it'll be your next favorite power. So yeah, hopefully you guys like this video. It's mostly just me telling you my opinion on this whole thing. And I think it's great. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video though, you should give it a thumbs up. And I will see you all next time.